Hello, 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 and welcome to the Grow Up with Grow show. I'm Brett Schklar, your cruise director here on the Grow Up with Grow show. And I also happen to be the managing partner at a company called Grow Powerful. There's a lot of marketing shows that are out there. This one's designed for the CEOs, the chief revenue officers, as well as the VCs and investors that support those companies. And now let's dive into today's topic. It's a juicy one. We have a lot of people on the panel. The topic is why the top marketing leaders want gigs and not jobs. It's a discussion about the fractional CMO model and why it's a better model for some companies. But most importantly, the best marketing leaders that are out there prefer the gig world instead of the job world. And we're going to talk to a couple of people. We've got an incredible panel today. We've got Amy Barone. Amy, say hi.
Hi, happy to be here.
We've got Law Smith.
Hello.
We've got Tanya White.
Howdy.
And we've got the incredible Rhonda Giedt.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so there's a lot of questions that have come in over time, and in working with CEOs and working with people, we get a lot of the same questions. So we're just going to dive in and ask these questions. And I want to start, Rhonda, I'm going to pick on you first. And for people who may have heard it or may have not heard it, what is a fractional chief marketing officer?
Well, a fractional chief marketing officer means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So it's always good to level set. For fractional CMOs, I think they're brought in when companies are not quite ready to jump in and hire a full-time head of marketing, VP of marketing, chief marketing officer. It's also a great way to bridge the gap between CMOs, heads of marketing, if someone is out on maternity leave, paternity leave, if they're looking for a longer term hire. It takes several months to hire a chief marketing officer, as we all know. We've all seen the data. So it's great to bring someone in who has been in the role before, that has had successes, especially if they have exits, and can jump in, roll up their sleeves, get a company started down the right path, and even help hire a full-time chief marketing officer as they transition out.
Yeah. On that point, there's been experiences where I've been the fractional chief marketing officer, and then they hire somebody, and that person who has been hired to basically replace, me by design, kept me on for several months more to really help smooth out the transition. That's more common in the private equity backed companies, the larger companies, but it does happen a lot. So Rhonda, thank you for that. Law, I'd love for you to provide, your, sort of fill in the gaps, maybe if there's some thoughts you have about a fractional CMO that you'd like to add. And then also, share how it differs, how a fractional chief marketing officer differs from a full-time CMO.
Ooh, double questions. All right. Right off the bat, I feel like I got a pop quiz. I'll kind of echo what Rhonda was saying. We kind of have to look at the point of your company where you're at, right? So a lot of people don't even know what a CMO is. So you have to first get over that part, right?
Yep.
And then, I would call it a mature business needs that C-suite level to where, they're doing well for a couple of years, but they're time to be as my dad likes to pronounce it, mature company, and really, really put on the big boy pants, as some of my clients have referred to it as. And so the fractional CMO, it kind of fills in a gap in either cost or time, or both. A lot of the time, a lot of people are kind of fire quickly, hire slow. I feel like it just innately, and so these C-suite level positions are very tough to drill down to find that right person. So a fractional CMO can come into the interim. It could be almost a tryout, sometimes by default, for that to be a full-time position for a company. And then the way it really offers, it kind of differentiates having a in-house full-time CMO versus a fractional CMO is, a lot of CMOs kind of play the player coach, right?
Mhm.
You're managing your macro and micro. You're checking on the micro to make sure it gets executed, but your macro to make sure the strategy is being followed. Our reporting is sound. We're going after the objectives we're going after. So, in terms of a day-to-day, that might be more delegated out, where you would have that CMO there every day, or if it would be more kind of intrapersonal relationships in the office, it's a little harder for the fractional CMO, but the fractional CMO can come in and be those kind of that clear kind of decision making and look at any intrapersonal situation, with fresh eyes, or any kind of pain points they're having with those clear eyes. Because the advantage of a fractional CMO that I think is always overlooked is because you were a fractional CMO for several clients at once, typically, that you can borrow strategies from other sectors that apply to your business. And I think that's very underlooked, like being able to not get so echo chambered in your own industry and execution.
Yeah, I love the concept of the echo chamber, and that's the problem that we run into. I think as full-time CMOs, and we've all been full-time CMOs. We really bring this outside perspective for the first 90 to 180 days, maybe. And then it starts to, you start to get internalized and sort of get on the inside. And as much as you want to continue to look at the outside, there's so many internal battles and issues and challenges and opportunities that it's hard to get back out. And so, that echo chamber is created. And as a fractional CMO, being able to cross-pollinate, what's working in one place and bring it to another place. What part of a tech marketing stack is working in one place versus another? Is email, slowing down across the board or just with one client? All those things you can really, triangulate across multiple clients, and makes you so much more valuable.
Yeah, a good metaphor might be I had a football coach that wanted everybody to play other sports growing up. The best athletes kind of learn from other sports. I had a soccer background that helped me in playing football as a linebacker. Kobe Bryant is another example. He played soccer growing up in Italy, and he said he gives all that kind of footwork to him being great at basketball. And so you want to have those other aspects to your strategy game to see, it's like if you were just a poker player, it's unusual for those professional poker players just to play poker. They usually play 7 other different strategy based games. So that helps.
No, I love that. I love that analogy of the cross sport, capability. So, as a CEO listening to this, and I understand the definition of a fractional chief marketing officer. Maybe they've fractional CFO has been incredibly popular over years, and it's sort of laid the groundwork for the fractional model. But specifically to, the fractional CMO model, why would, and maybe what are the scenarios? And Tanya, I'm going to pick on you for this one. Why would a CEO consider it? And why would an investor recommend a fractional CMO to one of their CEOs?
Yeah, the CEO's perspective is really the return on investment. So you've got 2 scenarios, really. One that, Rhonda raised early on in the conversation, which is, you're an interim, right? You're covering for someone. Maybe it's a maternity. There is someone in position. And in that case, what you're looking to do is maintain momentum, potentially improve already existing ROI calculations for your marketing investment. But what you don't want to do is slow down, and you really need that leader. The second scenario is you haven't had a marketing leader. Maybe you're not sure of your go-to-marketing, and you're trying to get to an ROI more quickly. So how do you do that without a long recruiting cycle, without the potential for a mishire. And, I will remind everyone that the attrition rate for CMOs is the worst at the executive table for a reason. And so, how do you avoid those pitfalls and get to an ROI more quickly? So I feel like those are the two reasons. Regardless of the situation, do you know your go-to-market? You don't. What are you hypothesizing? I think that's really what a CEO cares about.
Yeah, no, I love that. And in some ways, chief marketing officers, because of the short tenure, we're all fractional anyway. We're all kind of interim
We're all
anyway.
interim.
So it kind of it kind of fits actually better than a lot of other fractional executive models. Amy, I'm just curious, are you seeing other reasons why people would consider a fractional CMO?
Yeah, and you even kind of mentioned that 10 years shorter, and especially for early stage companies, a lot of times they're still finding out who they are, or they're growing so fast, they're almost a new company every single year. And depending on what that leadership team looks like, or that founder team looks like, they may or may not have a range of experience with marketing leaders. The fractional model is a great opportunity for you to kind of figure out what's that good fit, not only for your company, but for your leadership team. People come up to marketing leadership roles through different ways. It's not typical that every marketing leader has equal discipline experience across, go-to-market, product marketing, communications, things like that. And so what is that right fit for your organization? It's a great way to test the waters there and kind of see what's really resonating, what skill set really the organization needs, and help design that. It's also a great opportunity when you have some up and coming folks on your team who are the next generation of leaders, to bring in somebody to help develop them, to help grow and mature that bench of leadership within that organization. So there's a number of different benefits that companies can have by bringing in that fractional model, whether it is that coaching development, whether it is that fit finding, whether it is that even educational process for the leadership team as they're figuring out what is marketing, what does that mean for our organization? And that's a great way to help kind of narrow down what's important when they do go to bring on that full-time leader.
So it's kind of like a starter house or a starter spouse. It's like, you don't have to.
Spouse.
I know that's a thing.
I'm still in my starter house like 22 years later, so I don't know what that says about me.
So moving along, because I'm getting myself into a rat trap here. But I love that. And I think it is that as people are figuring out the right go-to-market strategy and that right go-to-market approach, someone may find that they have certain needs in the marketing leadership that isn't present. And so having that interim or having that fractional model can allow you to pivot, without the headache of hiring and firing full-time people. So I think, Amy, while we've sort of got your mic hot, if you will, I want to pivot a little bit to focusing on this team here, the fractional chief marketing officers. And the subject of this conversation is really why top marketing leaders are looking for, want the gigs instead of the jobs. Why is that happening? Why is that movement? And by the way, obviously I have my own echo chamber of people I follow on LinkedIn, and I will say that I've seen a 300% increase in the last year to 18 months of people hanging their shingle as a fractional chief marketing officer. Amy, if you could sort of share your thoughts on why is that? What's happening?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are really products of our own echo chamber, whether that be social media or even kind of digging deep within our organization. To your point earlier, getting past that 90 days and being very kind of tunnel vision. I think the fractional leaders are seeing a big opportunity. One is to be able to kind of share their success. We see a lot of consistent patterns across organizations. It's very easy to come in, or not easy, but there's that lens of opportunity to come in with fresh eyes and see with a very objective lens what's happening, what might work. A lot of times we're much more tapped into CMO communities, learning from each other. We don't get too far tunnel vision within a particular organization. And so we bring a lot of wealth of not only experience, but current knowledge and knowledge sharing across different organizations. And then a lot of marketing leaders really like that flexibility. As CMO tenures are at an all-time low, I think right now it's 18 months, maybe it's even plummeting from there. This is a great way to be able to come in, provide a lot of impact and value in a way that changes the dynamic a little bit, and I think fundamentally benefits both the organization and the fractional leader.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. And I see that as well. I wonder, Rhonda, what are you seeing that's driving this change, this direction?
Well, I think what drove the change for me is I love coming in and helping B2B companies who are stuck. They've reached that plateau. And how are you going to overcome that obstacle and get to your next milestone? And it's something that I've done several times with companies full time. And I realized that we get to the next growth milestone and I'm like, okay, I want to do that again. And that's what drew me to it, because I can really focus on what my super strength is and my superpower and come in and really help companies get to that next milestone, and then help them hire a really stellar team to continue that work. And that's what drew me to it. I know that lots of people do it for lots of different reasons. The flexibility is really nice. The being able to work with different industries and apply different learnings and kind of spark and ignite that acceleration and growth is really exciting. But that's why I did it.
Got it. Love it. And I think that's a really good point, is that there's certain passions that the challenge is marketing is such a big bucket of stuff. And every CEO has a different perception of what a marketing leadership person does, and how generalist or how specificalist, is that a word? Probably not, that they are. And especially, we work a lot with the B2B technology world, and a lot of founders and a lot of CEOs, up until the company has 100 or 200 employees, it's the founder CEO that also is primarily the technology visionary.
Mhm.
And their perception of marketing can be more product oriented. Some are more operational, and so therefore marketing is more pipeline oriented or sales driven, and therefore it is demand gen oriented. And so there's different perceptions of marketing. And I think the bucket is wider in marketing than it is in most other disciplines. And so there's a gift that we have in a specific area of marketing, and we can do that all day long for a period of time and then transition out. And so we can double down on that area that we love. Tanya, I'd like to ask you a question. Does it matter for a company if someone, and we're going to pivot to, the company lens for a second. Does it matter if someone is full-time or fractional?
Absolutely not. I don't know. Has anybody on this call read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, part of what he posits is if you're doing a really good job in your salary job, you could be so efficient that you actually only have to work 4 hours a week to do a full-time job. So I really, ultimately, it's about progress, it's about results. It's about what fits for the team. I mean, I know I've been in some situations where, the executive team had no experience working with a peer that was part-time, and they had a really hard time with it. And then other cases where, the CEO had worked with a CFO before who was part-time and things like that, and they understood what that meant, and that it didn't, it wasn't a negative to my commitment to the goals or anything. It really just is about, what are you trying to do to achieve results? How do you want to invest your dollars? How much do you already know about your go-to-market?
Yeah. Yep. And Rhonda, I have a question for you around the same lines, and I'll preface it by saying I talk with a lot of CEOs and a lot of VC firms, and I talk to them when someone recommends us after they've seen that company post a full-time, marketing leader position being open, whether it's a CMO or a VP of marketing or a head of marketing or whatever. And there's this perception that only a full-time, marketing leader can get the job done. From your perspective, does that matter? A full-time versus a fractional?
I don't think that it does at the 30,000 foot level, but I think Tanya makes a really good point. The CEO has to be comfortable with it. And if they're not comfortable with a fractional person that's not there 40, 50, 60 hours a week, it can be a tough learning curve. However, when I was full-time, I probably only spent 20% to 50% of my time actually doing work. And the rest of the time I was being pulled into a lot of meetings that I probably didn't need to be in. And having to spend after hours on actually doing the strategy and the analysis. So it can be done, but there's that mentality of, oh, if you're not always there, then I can't get my answers. And I think it's if you have a relationship with the CEO and when you come in to a company, setting that groundwork, really understanding how they work and think, and easing in to a relationship where they realize that they don't need you 24/7. And there's a lot of times that you can just send off an email, send off a Slack, and get to it when you can. And that is actually the same when you're full-time. If you're in back-to-back meetings all day, you're not answering your Slack, you're not answering your email. So it's just a shift in mindset, but it really comes down to, what does the CEO, the board, the other executives feel comfortable with? And if they can adapt to that, then I think it's a successful fit.
Rhonda, as you were talking about this difference, and you were talking about the fact that as a full-time CMO, you were spending a lot of time in meetings and not getting real work done. And those on the podcast, you didn't see that everybody's head was nodding up and down simultaneously, almost like we were, rocking out to the same music. And that's a powerful thing there, because I think we all have seen that we spend a lot of our time relationship management, making sure we're not, pissing people off, making sure that we are aligned. And that's great. And that's awesome. But sometimes that gets in the way of things getting done. And as a hired gun or a hired gig gun, sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. And it's not even that, it's you are being brought in as an outside expert to really be that executioner, to be the wolf in Pulp Fiction, to just get the job done. And the less people know about it, the better. And so there is that advantage there. So it was Rhonda, you hit on a nerve, or you hit on the sweet spot, whichever one, because we were all in big time agreement that the amount of time a full-time person spends in meetings, is the exact opposite of Tanya's theory of the 4-hour work week. Not Tanya's, but Tanya brought it up.
I wish it were mine.
So then let's dive into this idea of, gigs over jobs. And that's sort of the idea here, is that, gigs over jobs is sort of the future. And a question, and Tanya, I'd love for you to share your thoughts on this. Is this, we hear about the gig economy, right? Uber drivers, DoorDash drivers, Fiverr, Upwork. Is this a part of the gig economy, or is this something different?
Well, and I actually think, Brett, that you said something earlier that is sort of mind bending, which is, with the low tenure of CMOs anyway, we're maybe all in the same boat. And the only difference is that folks like us are going into it with our eyes wide open. Mm-hmm. And I think the other piece that's different is, interim isn't the same as fractional. So there's interim, fractional, and interim fractional.
Yep.
Where, in a way, maybe at least we're all interim, if your job is only 18 months and you go into it with that thinking, maybe that's what's different about us. So I'm not sure if it's the gig economy, like gig economy feels more focused on the individual.
Yep.
And I feel like what we do is more focused on our clients' results, if that makes sense,
It's
I
a
don't know
change.
what the rest of the group thinks there on that, but seriously,
Almost
it's
like more of an
this time-bending idea.
It's more almost an evolution of
Yeah.
consulting, but in a very
Yeah.
focused way.
Yeah.
Where, you only have so much time, and it's about really driving those specific results. And it's nice to say that if you're in as a full-time CMO, you might think the same way, but Brett, I think you said earlier, you're focused on relationship management, other things, and not the ability to be the wolf, and go
Yeah.
in and really just deliver. And it does change the dynamic a little bit, I think, in a pretty effective way.
Yeah, I like the term evolution. And I've seen, this evolution in the marketing world really started around the Great Resignation. Remember that? People were getting fed up with these companies, and part of us pandemic related that we no longer knew the separation of work and home because we're all working from home. And there was this burnout. And I think that certain disciplines within companies, B2B tech companies in particular, were feeling it more. And it really hit marketing hard. And the evolution, I think, began more so of this being a bigger discipline around that Great Resignation timeframe 12 to 18 months ago. Then we also started to see, this idea that, when you work here, you're family. And in fact, Salesforce.com, Mark Benioff, one of his sayings, I think it's either Hawaiian or Polynesian term for family that he would use. And that's moved away because you can't fire your family. Well, I guess you could, but it's really hard.
Or they
And
did.
so in the time of layoffs, and so there's also this relationship between the employer and the employees, or the, people making the decision that is changing to where it really is just a job.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much easier for us as marketers to say, if it's just a job, it's just a job. And I can do more gigs. I could make more money. I could have a little bit more authority by being an outsider in. And that changes it. Rhonda, I know you had a tip, you had something on the tip of your tongue to say.
I did. So Amy touched on something that sparked an idea of, she mentioned, fractional gig economy and then contract. And I really feel that fractional and interim CMOs look at the holistic strategy, and where if your contract, you're usually brought in for a specific project or to accomplish a specific task. And I often get asked, what's the difference between contract and fractional? And I do think that there's a big difference, because when you're working on one specific project, if it's not tied into the holistic plan, it may not be as successful as it could be. Where when you're fractional and you're looking at the 360-degree view of how this plays in with sales and product and finance and the overall business objectives, it's a lot more intricate. So I just wanted to touch on that point, because it is something that comes up a lot of times in conversation.
I love that. And a lot of the conversations I'm having, people, I think they know what they want. So they reach out, and through some discovery, you can help shift the mindset, and it should all be interconnected, right? It's not one narrow scope a lot of times, and sometimes it is, but I think that's where we bring a lot of values to help leaders understand how that is so connected, and where there can be even like exponential impact by thinking about the problem a little bit differently. And that's where there's tremendous value in this model and this way of working.
There's another reason why I think we're also a great ally, or what I call a consigliere to the CEO. And it's one of the reasons. So shifting from a full-time chief marketing officer to a fractional or interim, let's call it a gig CMO, making that shift is not just about changing the relationship with the clients or employee. It's also changing that you're going from being an employee to being your own small business owner. Now, Grow is here to help, fractional CMOs find more gigs. There's no doubt about that. But you're your own business owner now, right? You're managing your business as a business. And therefore, having that business ownership mentality really helps you think like a CEO of your own business. And it can help you even more to the CEO or to the leadership team because you're bringing this different mindset, intentionally or unintentionally, to the table. And that's a lot. You're thinking about your own revenue. You're thinking about how do you find new clients yourself. You're thinking about the client experience of your own clients. And because of that, you're more well-rounded than any other CMO that's been working in full-time jobs for a long time. And I'd love your thoughts on that. I don't know if there's agreement or disagreement on that, but, I have found that the CEOs value me as another business owner and a CMO, not just bringing marketing insights.
Yeah, I've been called business therapist by a lot of my clients because the dirty secret about entrepreneurship, or if you're at a C-suite level of a more mature company, is entrepreneurship or at that high level is very isolating.
Yeah.
And that's the duality of that autonomy, right? You can move swifter, you can make your own hours and make the decisions. But on the other side of that, you look around, unless you really cultivate that, which most people don't, is finding that community to really talk about this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of CEO groups that look like AA meetings that a lot of people don't know about. I didn't know about it until about 7 years ago. And I get it. They have no one else to talk to but someone like themselves, right? It's why celebrities date each other.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, and what I thought you're kind of talking about is empathy and ego. A good, healthy mix of both is why, Brett, you were kind of that consigliere.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
I also think too, I've noticed for me, the sweet spot on timing is like 6 to 12 months in seat. When I start getting past that, I start to become more like what Rhonda described. Now, all of a sudden, I'm sucked into more meetings. Now they want me on all this other stuff. And it's like, no. That now I'm losing my effectiveness, right? I'm not that trusted advisor. Now, all of a sudden, you're kind of treating me like an employee, which I'm not. And that is like the whole plus of having me there, is that I am a little bit of this little separate interlocked sphere. I'm not in it,
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the tenure of the engagements, and after a certain period of time, it does start to feel full time. I was assuming that the Grow business model, the Grow Powerful business model, was really assuming about a 6-month lifespan, and that was sort of the top end. Right now, our average is 8 months. It's just over 8 months, and it's interesting because we are starting to feel like that, and we are getting sucked into meetings after the 8-month period. So. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
Yeah.
I want to dive into sort of timing, and Rhonda, I think you've got some good insights here. How do you know when is the right time to bring in a fractional CMO? If I'm a CEO and I'm saying, we definitely have a marketing problem, but we also have we have a go-to-market problem, but we also have all these other problems. I got 99 problems. Is marketing one? Or is marketing the big one? When's the right time to bring in a fractional chief marketing officer?
Yes, that is a great question. And the answer is when you have a problem. So actually, in all seriousness, it's usually when you're hitting your head against a wall and you're just frustrated of, I don't know where to start with marketing. I know that we need it. I know that it can help. I don't know how. I read a paper or I read a book and I think I need this. It's also a time when you hit a plateau and you've tried everything and you're like, why are we not getting past? Usually it's like 10 million ARR, 50 million ARR. Like how do I get to that next level? And when you start asking those questions, it's probably time to bring in an expert. And I'm a marketing person, so I'm a little biased, but I think marketing is tied into the foundation of a company. Is your messaging positioning correct? Is your ICP and adapting as you grow, as the market grows, as it changes? A lot of people forget that as a product grows and adapts and you start adding more features and benefits on, your ICP is going to change, your positioning is going to change. And sometimes it's hard to break through those frustrations. And it's good to have someone, as Tanya said, come in, be that expert, that outside person that gives a fresh perspective. It's also kind of like what Law said, you become a therapist because you're dealing with a lot of change management. And especially employees who have been there since the beginning, they're like, why are we changing everything? And that takes a lot of discussions and hard conversations and helping them see how they fit into the new path of the business. So I think when you start hitting that frustration point, you need to call in an expert.
Yep. Got it. And I think that's a really good, that frustration point or that pain point is a great time to bring someone. And curious, Tanya, what do you see as far as timing to bring in a fractional CMO?
Yeah, I think CEOs like Rhonda, I can't support your statements enough. They have so many parts of the business that are a concern. They're looking at the biggest fire, and or the biggest like barren land that they haven't even like tried to traverse yet in order to achieve their goals. So really it's about, I have a problem or I have something I'm trying to achieve and I don't know how. And I think this, marketing role could help. I think that's really the biggest way. And I think too, the only other thought I would say is marketing is such a hub to the organization, culturally, internally. It knits together your product vision with your ICP, with your it plays this role that I feel a little bit like it's not a bad idea to get regular tune-ups. Like just having someone come in and maybe take a look at everything and just say, hey, you've got missed opportunity here, or, what are some of your growth goals? Are you trying to increase top line revenue? Or are you trying to improve sales effectiveness? There's a chance that marketing has a role to play. And I think that doing that kind of a health check isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, I do like that as well. I think that's good perspective. Okay, so let's dive into we've only got a couple minutes left. Let's dive into our lightning round here and just really start to touch on some of these key questions and some of these thoughts, for the CEOs. Because I think we've covered a lot of ground already, and there's obviously a lot more that people want to know. And by the way, as people want to know more, reach out to the team members. We'll make sure we've got everybody's contact information and everybody's LinkedIn profiles and everybody's TikTok videos, whatever you need, we'll have it in the follow-up here. But I want to get into the lightning round of let's just do some rapid fire questions. We know they're on people's minds. And Law, I'm going to pick on you for a second here. Again, what are the advantages of leveraging a fractional CMO until a full-time CMO comes in place? Why have that, that step in the middle?
Marketing is like having a water leak in your roof. They say water doesn't take any days off and it'll find a way. Marketing is inevitable, not to sound like Thanos or something like that, but marketing, it's the last thing a lot of people plan for in a business. We all know that, right? So the question of like, when should you hire a fractional CMO? I know everybody's head went to, we get a lot of people going yesterday as an answer for everything, which drives us all bananas. But it's the last thing really planned a lot of the time. And it's the first thing to get kind of cut unceremoniously. We kind of spoke about that a little bit earlier. It's time. Basically, it gives you time so that you have someone coming in that can, come in and be effective immediately. That's low hanging fruit, what needs to keep the lights on, and maybe bridge that gap for that. I'd say a needs and wants list. It's very dorky. I do this with apps and software. I do it with hiring. I go, what do I need out of this hire or app? What do I want out of it? And try to drill down that criteria. And I think it really just buys you that gap. And shout out for the wolf reference earlier. You give me a couple beers deep, I'll tell you I'm Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction.
There you go. Perfect. Amy, I'm going to ask you a different question here, and that is, how can a fractional CMO help with building a team and eventually, helping find your replacement?
Yeah. We have a unique perspective and the ability to really think about evaluating strengths and weaknesses really quickly. And we have that ability to see how the strengths and weaknesses really align to the business outcomes and connecting those two pieces. And so we can get those teams really focused around those priorities, really driving, in a lot of cases, quick wins, right? While the business can kind of shape up what they need and then being able to bring in that right person and kind of understanding the dynamic there. So great bridge role. Got
it. And then as we're going into the lightning round, there's a couple more questions here I'd love to cover. And honestly, I'd love to know, who would like to answer this, but how do you know if someone is actually qualified to be a fractional CMO? And I'll preface this. A lot of people are getting trained to call themselves a fractional CMO and therefore charge more money. So how can you as a CEO know who is right and who is wrong? Rhonda, I'll let you.
I'm going to jump in on this one.
Yeah.
So I would look at it as any business due diligence. When you are going to an investor and asking for money, you want to know that they're going to be around and that they're going to give you advice and help. And when you're looking for board members, you're going to dive into their background, their network, and see their proven success. It's the same for CMOs. Look at their LinkedIn, go to organizations such as Grow, ask about their successes with exits and the type of exits and this type of companies. Ask the hard questions. There are some people who are making this jump to fractional that haven't been seasoned and battle tested. I don't know if that means that we're old or that we're just weathered. But asking the questions that are hard and getting into the nitty-gritty of what do you need and does it match that person? So do your due diligence.
And I just want to add to that too is, what separates a fractional CMO from like a regular one? Let's just assume all marketing skills are equal. It really does boil down to your ability to manage change effectively, to jump in and quickly identify value. You don't have 3 months to figure it out. You've got about 2 weeks to start showing progress and plans, right? So I think it's that skill set that differentiates someone who's accustomed to being fractional versus that one who isn't.
Yep. So then let's end on that point that you bring, Tanya, and let's just, finish it out. And that is, a lot of the companies we work with are emerging B2B technology companies or some type of B2B company, and they are looking for, growth, and they need it fast and they need it now. And we have to manage expectations. So, we can do this popcorn style. I know, Law, you've got a perspective on this. I know, Rhonda, you've got a perspective on this as well. But how long does a fractional CMO need to be in place in order to see results?
This isn't going to be a very satisfying answer, but I'll say it depends on the goals set out, really, right? Because some are short-term, some are long-term. So it's going to be dynamic to what the needs of the business are, which isn't there's no short answer with this, right? Just like we always hear, there's no silver bullet in marketing. I kind of feel it's dynamic to what the objectives and goals are of the business.
Yep. Rhonda?
Yes. I hate the answer. It depends, because it does depend. It really depends on what you're looking to get out of of the role. And also, as a fractional CMO, we're very well versed in, as we're developing the strategy, we're also keeping the tactics running. So we're kind of building the plane as it's flying.
Mhm.
And it really is, what is the end goal and what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Well, but I'm going to be the contrarian here and enough with the wishy-washy answer and say, like, if within the first 30 days, you're not showing some impact, and I don't mean, that you can necessarily impact your program's results already by that time, but maybe you've already identified opportunities for improvement or efficiency, or you like something, you don't have that luxury of 3 to 6 months to ramp up on a job. Like, if I'm not showing some value within that 30 days, I would even almost say 2 weeks, like, then I think there's probably some question if I was the right pick.
Yeah.
But maybe it's more cutthroat with my clients.
No, I think you're right. I think it's really key to show those small wins.
Yes. Yeah.
And whether you're full-time or fractional, when you come in, I've come in to places and they're like, you have 3 months to just sit back and absorb, which in theory makes sense, but in reality, that's not really what happens. Like week 2, they start asking you questions of like, and what about this? And oh,
Yeah.
can you do this?
That's right.
So I do think having those small wins. So you do have to show that you're making progress, but it's not overnight success.
So there's a couple of thoughts I'd like to share there, and then I know we need to wrap up because we're out of time here. But there's a couple of thoughts. Number one is I'm always when I'm engaged with a prospect or a client, I am always looking to show value in some way, form, or fashion. So in some ways, even before a contract is signed, I'm giving people ideas of things to think about and trying to help them, just from the first phone call, first conversation. But that's just my nature. I like to help. I like to try to assist. I like to, ask the question, how can I help? The second way to look at it is, sometimes people do need to move faster, and then therefore you need to increase your engagement with a fractional CMO. There is the inevitable triangle of getting stuff done. And that is, you can have it fast, you can have it good, or you can have it cheap. And you can pick one or you can pick two, but you can't have all three. And I think that applies here. You in most cases, people want it fast until they realize the cost of fast. They want it cheap until they realize the cost of cheap. And nobody wants it to be, expensive, but they will quickly learn the value of having somebody experience like what we bring to the table. And so if you take that triangle, it really helps you sort of figure it out, and you position that with prospects, and I think it goes. I know we're out of time. Anybody have any final thoughts or comments or disagreements, or you want to pick on somebody, feel free to. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, listen, this has been a phenomenal topic, and this is our first time doing a panel of this many people, and it went incredible. And so I thank you all for being here. Rhonda, Tanya, Law, Amy, this is amazing insights, and I hope people see the value of what you bring to the table in your thought process. So thank you for being a part of this. All right.
Thanks.
Well, yeah. And if you like this show, be sure to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to it. It does help us out a whole lot. You can always visit us at growpowerful.io. You can subscribe to our blog. We've actually got a great blog, and every week or two, we share something. We tend to get a lot of response on our LinkedIn newsletter, and just search for Grow Up with Grow, and you'll see a lot of great stuff there. Find us on YouTube. And if you're a fractional CMO and you want to join our community, we have an open community called FracMO. And find me and I'll help you get into that group. As a final reminder, Grow is a team of battle-tested and proven fractional CMOs. And you've seen that here, the power and the strength and the capability and the wisdom of the people here. And we're designed for the innovation economy, B2B technology, biotech, pharma. We're finding a lot of different people who really appreciate the fractional CMO model. Our mission is simple. It's to assemble the greatest marketing minds in all of B2B tech and deliver them as fractional CMOs. And I think we are doing that. And with the help of great people like this, we are doing it even more. So thank you and have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.